Welcome into the Action Network podcast. Your host today, Brendan Glasheen, looking forward to the 86th edition of the Masters Tournament. Once again, the best golfers in the world are gathering at Augusta National Golf Club for the most prestigious golf major in the PGA Tour. Today, joining me, Spencer Aguiar and Nick Bretwisch. They are both contributors to our Action Network podcast, Links and Locks. Great having both of you. We'll start like this. We're going to go through some best bets. The guys are going to give us some matchup bets, their favorite matchup bets, placement bets, some random props. We'll spend a moment on Tiger Woods. Don't you worry. We'll get to Tiger, and we'll also get some outright picks and find out what we can do and tune into on better golf. So, Spencer, we'll start with you, sir. How about a favorite matchup bet to get us started ahead of the Masters?
Well, first of all, Brendan, thank you for having us on. We appreciate the time to be able to do this segment, but I like Tommy Fleetwood minus 110 over Bubba Watson on DraftKings. That price is nearly 40 points less than the rest of the market. My model believes Watson is the most mispriced player on the board, and I think a lot of the intrigue around him is stemming from his past success at Augusta. And to be fair, the Masters does have the best predictability when it comes to rollover success of any venue on tour. But it's hard to find much to be encouraged about with Watson when we remove the rose-colored glasses of the past. Watson has averaged negative 3.4 shots with his irons over his past 3 starts. And I think Fleetwood's overall steady nature should play nicely at a track where he has made 4 straight cuts, and he enters the week having gained 5.5 strokes tee to green over his last 2 outings.
How about you, Nick? So Fleetwood's the pick for Spencer. How about yourself when you look at a favorite matchup bet?
I think my favorite one, despite laying so much juice, which usually I do not like to do, is Xander Schauffele minus 126 over Will Zalatoris on FanDuel. Xander Schauffele is one of the top 5 players in my model this week, someone that always stands out for me at Augusta. Should have won last year if you ask me, and then had that blow up on, I believe, 17 on the par 3. But yeah, I'm going with Xander over Will Zalatoris. I think Zalatoris will be someone that I pick on often on the DFS and betting market this week. But yep, Xander it is.
By the way, I want to shout out Spencer. He's the reigning 2022 Fantasy Sports Writer Association Golf Writer of the Year. So Spencer, golf clap for you, sir, as the pod continues. Man, that was so cheesy on my end. This is a golf podcast today on the Action Network podcast, a golf episode. Had to get that in there. So
Thank you, I appreciate it.
No question. Let's move right along to, how about a top placement bet, Spencer, that you're high on for the Masters?
Yeah, you're going to hear a lot of Rory McIlroy from me this week. I like Rory to come top 20 at minus 125 on DraftKings. I will try to spread the love around to each section and not clump everything into one portion, so I have nothing left to discuss every time I get to McIlroy this week. But I think there is an overall disinterest going on throughout the space where most bettors or DFS players are overlooking his chances because we have gone through the song and dance of him trying to capture the career Grand Slam countless times. The form might seem discouraging to many after his miscut at the Valero, but he's been dominant tee to green over his past 5 starts, averaging 4.86 strokes during that time frame. As I always recommend, shop around for the best price you can find, but I think Rory's an interesting target across the board this week.
Rory's 20-1 to win the Masters, and I think, Spencer, correct me if I'm wrong, Rory tends to be better. He tends to be better when he's in spots where there's less pressure, right? Like he might be being a little overlooked, which might be right in his wheelhouse.
I 100% agree with that. You know, this is a topic that always weighs him down when he enters the Master, that he's trying to capture the career Grand Slam. He missed the cut at the Valero. There's all the hoopla surrounding Tiger that I'm sure we'll get to in a second, but Rory has the skill set to find success here. And I do think that this is the perfect venue and maybe the perfect time in his career where he can finally get across the finish line.
Agreed. Yeah. And you're talking the cut he missed at Valero, his first missed cut since last July, I believe, at the Scottish Open. So it had been a while, but we'll see. Rory, a little momentum, at least playing last week. And not all golfers can say that heading into the Masters, the 86th Masters tournament. How about you, Nick? How about your top placement bet or bets if you have multiple?
Certainly. I think the favorite one for me is going to be Sunjae Im top 20. It seems like no one in the public is talking about this guy. I know the iron play is not where it once was, but he's one of the best putters on bent grass. He is a native of Georgia, and he is a monster around the green, which is something my model values a ton this week. He's also an excellent scrambler. That price is the best in the market, I believe, on DraftKings at plus 210, Sunjae Im.
Okay, so I want to, before we move on, we have random prop bets coming your way, which is always a fun way to get involved with the Masters. We'll also get outright picks from Spencer and Nick, and we'll basically wrap it there. I want to remind you all as well, if you're tuning into the Action Network podcast, we do have UFC 273 coming on Friday. That's just a reminder that we do have more coming here on the Action Network podcast. So let's get to Tiger Woods, okay? So Tiger has an unreal crowd show up at his practice round. He confirms in, looks like a press conference. I'll be honest, I haven't had a chance to watch or listen to the clip, but he's on camera, framed up. Tiger dialed in, looks right into the camera and says, yep, I think I'm good. I'll be ready to go. So Tiger's going to give this thing a go. He's going to give it a go. He's going to give it a go. So I'm looking at DraftKings right now. And you can both tell me, hey, you're doing it wrong. You're looking at this wrong. But I'm looking at to miss the cut, to make the cut, Tiger Woods. It's at minus 115 on both sides. So I'm wondering, as a casual golf observer, better, is the best play on Tiger Woods to look at whether or not he makes or misses the cut? I don't know if you like him outright. How do you play, if at all, Spencer, Tiger Woods? How do you approach it, if at all?
My model has Tiger Woods 51st overall. The top 50 players in ties will make the cut. I think that that's a very fair price tag on the surface when we're looking at this. The one thing I will say is I believe Tiger is going to be competitive in this tournament, at least on day one. Tiger is not mincing his words when he says he thinks he has a chance. That's a true statement from him. I don't think he would put his legacy, his career, everything that he's done in jeopardy to come out and just try to compete. I think in his mind, he truly believes he has a chance this weekend. My concerns come what happens on Friday. If he makes the cut, what happens on Saturday? What happens on Sunday? I think eventually this is a very undulated course. It's a difficult course to walk. I think his body's going to fall apart on him a little bit. I hope I'm wrong on that assessment there. I think he will make the cut. I don't know if we're going to get a top 30 finish from him, but somewhere between 30th and whatever the bottom of the board is of players that make the cut would be my assessment of where I think he's going to finish.
How about you, Nick? What do you think about Tiger Woods? Is there a way to play Tiger Woods? Is it a wait and see, or do you have interest in the make or miss the cut bet market?
I personally don't think I could bet either side of that. I mean, I think the only time he's missed a cut is when he was an amateur, and I never want to doubt Tiger Woods. The guy always seems to, to blow our minds every time we want to doubt him. But for me, I think as a fanboy, I'm going to take the 80-1 on points bet and probably light my money on fire. I think that's okay for me. But I don't know if you're a listener here and you have a lot of confidence in Tiger Woods, I think the best number may be taking him as a top former winner. I believe 10-1 on DraftKings is the best price in the market right now. Really, the only competition there that I see is Dustin Johnson and maybe Adam Scott. I'm not really worried about Hideki. I know he's been injured, just pulled out of the Valero last week. Jordan Spieth did have a really good round on Sunday, but I don't know. His game just doesn't seem to be right. So it's kind of, to me, like you're getting a 10-1 price tag heads up against Dustin Johnson and maybe a little bit of Adam Scott. Because like Spencer said about Bubba Watson earlier, I'm a complete fade on him as well.
So I think we just found out in that couple minutes we spent on Tiger Woods, there's a smart way to go about it. And then as Nick laid out, there's a fun way to go about it. But yes, we do caution your bets with Tiger Woods. Take your own risk because the guy can certainly prove it. If there's anyone that can do it, it's him. Once again, we have Spencer Aguiar and Nick Bretwisch. They are both contributors on our golf podcast at Action Network, Links and Locks, and they're very, if you're familiar with their work, they're over at Better Golf. We'll have more on that as the show unfolds here on the Action Network podcast. Thanks for tuning into our Masters betting preview. And just to share, folks, Tiger Woods tees off at 10:34 a.m. Eastern on Thursday. Let's move to random props. This should be fun. I'm looking forward to this. This is a fun way to maybe get someone who's not as familiar with betting on golf, but maybe a way to stay involved without actually getting in on an outright winner. Spencer, how about a random prop for us or some props that you're exploring?
Yeah, I will give you one, and that would be Cameron Young to be the top debutante at 8-1 on BetMGM. I want golfers that can hit the ball long in these softer conditions, and it might help some of his around the green woes if the facility doesn't have as much fire as some might be expecting. Young is the second player in my model this week in driving distance, and he also grades an impressive 9th in par 5 birdie or better percentage.
Like it. And something you brought up a good point. We have to monitor winds this weekend at Augusta. Like that's going to be a factor, right? And some of these par fives too, like guys who can strike the ball. That's going to be a focus, I would think, right, Spencer?
Yeah, par five scoring is always really prevalent for players that find success here. We see it every single year when Dustin won. I mean, he led the field in par five scoring. It's just a stat that's very important. In distance, these fairways are more wide open than an average tour stop. They're 11 yards wider on average. So you are able to bomb and gouge a little bit without much. I don't want to say that there's not trouble to be found. You can go way too far left or right on these shots, but you are able to carry the ball further. And I think that players that have distance will have an advantage, especially with the rain that's been in the forecast and that's been in Augusta over these last couple of days. If that softens up the course, you don't get as much rollout on these drives. And I think a player like Cameron Young might be able to use his distance to an advantage.
Nick, how about a random prop for us that you're on for the weekend?
So the same market, sorry to go against Spencer a little bit here, but top debutant, I'm going with Sam Burns, a guy that has 2 top 10 finishes and 3 top 30 finishes in his past 3 events, all with loaded fields. He blows up everything about my model, par 5 scoring, scrambling around the green. Obviously, we know how good of a player Sam Burns is. And the reason I like him the most going his first time out is his caddy, Travis Perkins. He has been very solid at Augusta. I believe he was with Billy Horschel, and before that, Scott Piercy. So he knows his way around Augusta, Georgia, and that's something that I value a lot. That is plus 400 on BetMGM.
Familiarity with the course, no doubt. And Spencer, one of you mentioned this, something about, just how Tiger walking around. I think Spencer said this, just the fatigue of the course and making your way around Augusta. That is certainly something that has to be considered when you weigh your choices. All right, so let's get to the good stuff. Some outright winners, or your favorite outright winner, Spencer, or if you got a handful, please give it to us.
I kind of already alluded to this, that this is Rory McIlroy week for me. So Rory McIlroy 20-1. I wasn't planning to do this when the week started, but something changed for me on Sunday when I made a few minor alterations to my model. As I said, I think these conditions will be softer because of the rain. Rory's biggest issue is when scores don't creep into double digits. He's never won a title at less than 12 under par. He's a high ball flight hitter who should excel at the track. And we see that data come into play with him ranking 3rd in this field for weighted tee to green and 1st in a course-specific breakdown of my model. Just to give one other play, another way that you can play Rory if you're trying to maybe not bet him to win the tournament, but you still want to take him. There is a group matchup against Victor Hovland, Brooks Koepka, Colin Morikawa, and Jordan Spieth. Rory is plus 330 on DraftKings there to win that group. I think he should have been the favorite, which ended up belonging to Hovland at plus 275. But I like that he's matched against 4 players where he is minus 130 or better at pretty much any offshore book that you can find.
I kind of want to bring this point home a little more, Spencer, as we hit on earlier, but Rory McIlroy quoted saying, "I could have won the Masters with 12 under par in 2015, but Jordan Spieth played much better than everyone else, won by a few. I always seem to play well when people give me a chance. Lower expectations are a good thing. And not to mention 3 of the last 6 PGA Tour wins have come after a missed cut, as we discussed earlier in the show." Nick, your favorite outright pick for the Masters?
Like Spencer, I am on Rory, but 2 other tickets that I like a lot right now is Victor Hovland 22-1 on PointsBet, and then I am gonna go back to Sam Burns. I know we've never seen a first-time starter get the victory here, at least in, I believe, 50 years, but Sam Burns is 50-1 on DraftKings. The reason I'm taking him outright is just the putter. I think this is a putter's course as well, and he's one of the best putters on tour. And then to get a little longer will be Sunjae Im 75-1 on DraftKings. That's probably as long as I'm going in the outright market this week.
So before we learn more about better golf, how about your, Spencer, you first, then Nick, your absolute best bet. So it doesn't have to necessarily be an outright, but your best bet of any that we've discussed or one you haven't mentioned yet, best bet for the Masters, Spencer.
I'm a head-to-head person. Everything that I do, I try to find advantages in those markets. So it would be Tommy Fleetwood over Bubba Watson at minus 110 on DraftKings.
Okay. And how about you, Nick?
I'm going with Sunjae top 20 plus 210.